So what happened is, by the time she was getting to around 1.5, she could not even say goodbye. You know the way you leave a child and like, hi, bye, and they will copy that bye. She would not. And then that's when I noticed, no, there must be something wrong. And the child just did not, in my words, did not love me. You know the way a child sees the mother and just wants to wrap themselves around their mother. My child didn't want that. Autism also can find itself in your lineage. If someone is autistic, it can find yourself there. But we being Africans, autism is not something that we are used to. So I wouldn't know if anyone in my family is autistic. And unfortunately, autism has been labeled. We don't label it autism, we label it witchcraft. That's witchcraft. Yeah, you did something wrong. Your grandfather and grandmother did something wrong. You as a parent did something wrong. You went to witch doctors, you gave out your child, name it. So first of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here. May God bless you for that. So my name is Edna Myra. I'm a food content creator on YouTube, and I also double up as a researcher. And then the cherry on the cake is that I'm a mother of 2 beautiful, wonderful, strong girls, and a wife to 1. Oh yeah, so I have 2 wonderful daughters, as I have mentioned. The elder one is 11 years old, and the younger one is 3 years old, just turned 3. So yeah, it's amazing parenting them because they're in 2 different worlds. Age-wise, I think they fall under different generations. And other than that, the younger one is autistic. So I can say I have a taste of both worlds, coming from the first child with autism, non-autistic, she's not on the spectrum, and then the next one on the spectrum. So funny thing, I love kids. In fact, I worked in a children's home for about 6 years. That's how much I love kids, volunteering. I love kids. However, I didn't really want to have kids of my own, because I was like, there are too many kids to go around. I mean, why do I need a kid on my own? But after I got my first child, I was like, it's not as bad as I thought. And I even loved children more. So that's why my journey began when I was 24 years old. That's when I got my first child. I was blessed enough to have, I had my pregnancy was smooth, my delivery was smooth. And my journey now into motherhood, I think the fact that I had worked in a children's home prior, even while I was pregnant, that sort of prepared me for motherhood, because we were taking care of children who are like a day old, those that had been picked from, hospitals, places they had been dumped to teenagers and people who are even older. So I had a smooth sailing. And I had people around me who are always there to help me with the child. So it wasn't a burden. The only thing I remember that I didn't like about motherhood was breastfeeding. I would go online, YouTube, and I say, I've pumped how many millimeters in a day? My breastfeeding journey. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? Why am I the only one who is screaming help when it comes to breastfeeding? My breastfeeding journey was, it wasn't good. And even with that, I think that traumatized me such that with my second child, I didn't really breastfeed. It was pumping all the way. I was like, nope, I'm not about to do this again. So I pumped, though later on, she started breastfeeding when we were about, I think 1.5 years old. That's when she began breastfeeding. Yes. So breastfeeding, 1.5, she was just like, I don't know, it wasn't really breastfeeding. She was just comfort. And that's when actually now the autism started now kicking in. The signs and symptoms of autism started kicking in, because they do what we call a lot of steaming, which we'll get to. And one way of her steaming was through breastfeeding. She will really find comfort in that. and she didn't really breastfeed, but she breastfed. Yeah, so that's how my journey with motherhood was. So taking care of a newborn and all that, smooth sailing, breastfeeding was just a bumpy hell of a ride. So with my second child, I know it sounds weird, but I don't know how it happened. I did it. It wasn't planned. I didn't plan for it. I wasn't looking for a child. I was content with one, but here I am pregnant, and I found out I was pregnant like 2 months in. I didn't know. It didn't come with the kawaida signs of nausea and all that. I just felt my stomach was just hard for no apparent reason. And I had this metallic taste in my mouth that just couldn't go away. So by the time I was finding out I was pregnant, I was like around 2 months. So yeah, fast forward, delivery comes in. With my first child, it was a normal delivery. So I did hope to have a normal delivery with the second child, which I did. But on the delivery, it's called a delivery table or bed. Let's call it a bed. When I delivered naturally, I felt like my child took long to cry. But the doctors were not concerned. They didn't see it as an issue. You know the way, let me give an example, the way you can send someone maybe to a shop, and then you have an estimated time of when that person should come back. And then you're like, this person has taken long, and then they show up. So you will not find it like an issue. Yeah. So that's what happened to me. So I was like, when the baby was out, I was like, hey, this child is not crying. And then now they begin crying. But the doctors didn't find a cause of alarm, like this child has taken long or anything. So I also didn't bother. I just asked, is my child okay? They're like, yeah, Amelia, so your child is fine. So no cause of alarm. So fast forward, we are released. Of course, we go home. The baby is okay, but the baby could not breastfeed for some strange reasons. So I try now giving, the doctors recommended that if they cannot breastfeed and they check, I don't know, under the tongue, just to check if they are tongue tied and all that. My baby was fine. So we didn't know what was causing the child not to breastfeed. But the doctors recommended, how about you pump? And I was like, pumping is even better, because remember, I didn't have a good experience with breastfeeding with my first child. So I was like, even the second child, pumping was the way to go. My mom passed on in 2020, October 30th. Yeah. We bury her on 7th of November. I give birth 2 weeks after. So I was in a season of very high emotions, mourning. And when you're pregnant and mourning, everyone is telling you, don't mourn, be strong for the child. I don't know what that means. Yeah. But everyone was like, oh, you're pregnant, be strong for the child. So I did not mourn my mom properly because I was pregnant. So after birth, I felt like, no, this is when I need to mourn my mom. And it was so heavy. I was depressed. I would cry day in, day out. So because of that, my milk production wasn't as high. I opted to start NAN, using the NAN feeding. What are they called? Formula. Thank you. I opted to use the formula. So, but my daughter could not take any formula. We tried all sorts of formula. Again, a sign of autism, but it must be checked by a doctor, right? So, but those were like early signs, because autistic children tend to be hyperallergic to everything. My daughter can't stomach milk. Till date, any sort of milk, whether we tried goat milk, goat formula, we tried, I don't know, Bill and what, cow and what, none, name it. We even tried shipping in one from South Africa. That's how far we went. But she could not stomach it. We tried camel milk. She could not stomach it. Goat milk. She could not stomach it. We tried soya milk. That's the only thing she could take. Soya milk and almond milk, those ones. But now I just had to find a way of now just pumping and breastfeeding. So we kind of, put it on like, okay, you have breast milk, right? So let's not focus on why she's not able to take all this other milk. So fast forward, we continue with breast milk. Fast forward, the baby starts crawling. But before the baby crawls, there's that I noticed my baby could not just she would stare into space and not stare at a person. She would prefer looking at spaces than looking at people's faces, which is awkward because children should prefer looking at faces. They need to seek people's faces because children don't like being alone. But for some strange reasons, my daughter would be at peace while alone. She would stare into spaces. She'll just give you an awkward stare. But you can tell it's not you she's looking at. She's looking past you. Wow. Yeah. But that, again, didn't like... We just noticed it, and my husband and I will talk and like, by the way, this child just stares. And we don't know who she's staring at. You try to look at the wall to see what she's staring at. They're not staring at anything, but they're staring. And then they will not... Anytime we would feed, there was no that eye contact. She just didn't like human interaction. Just playing on her own. She was cooing. It's called cooing. Cooing. The baby sound. That she would do. But human interaction was not there. Even with children, you know the way children will be drawn to other children and get excited. Nothing. She would just stare maybe at the TV, stare into space. A lot of staring was happening. Then when it came to crawling, she crawled with one leg. One leg up, the other leg on a normal 4. Yeah. Which was awkward. But then again, we felt like, labda, it's a style. I mean, whoever told you that crawling must happen on 4s? We didn't bother with that, but we noticed it. And then when she started walking, when she started like lifting herself on things and walking, she would tiptoe. Anytime she was on her feet, she would tiptoe. And we would wonder, why is this child tiptoeing? It didn't make sense to us. Other things, they were okay. We felt like she crawled at the given time. She walked a bit late, but within time. But she would tiptoe. Always tiptoeing. And we will just wonder, okay, why is this child tiptoeing? Is this how children walk? Yeah, but we did not raise the issue. So what happened is, by the time she was getting to around 1.5, she could not even say goodbye. You know the way you leave a child and like, hi, bye, and they would copy that bye. She would not. And then that's when I noticed, no, there must be something wrong. And the child just did not, in my words, did not love me. You know the way a child sees the mother and just wants to wrap themselves around their mother. My child didn't want that. My child did not want to be carried by anyone. Wow. She just doesn't want to be carried. And of course, people would look at it like, hey, you don't take your child out to meet people. That's why, they are rejecting being carried. But later on, I learned that touch gave her some sort of shock. It's like you're electrifying her whenever you touched her. There's just some wave of currency that she felt. That's why she didn't want to be touched. So whenever we took our child for immunization, I'll bring these issues up. Like I will tell the doctor, my child is just not interested with me or in me or the things I do. She would walk past me. She just doesn't want that human interaction completely. And the doctor will say, okay, it's a bit too early to diagnose for anything. Let's give her time. Because she could be a late bloomer. And we'll be okay. The doctor has said. So, and again, it's a repeatable institution. So you're like, okay, kama ni amesema, we are cool with it. Let's flow with it. So we are getting to 2 years. The child hasn't talked any word. The child is still not saying the simple things like bye. She's not pointing. The simple things, pointing, showing interest in people. She would only show interest in colors. So she will come to you if you have something bright on. And it has to be a monochrome. Like if it's yellow, it's yellow. It's not mixed. If it's red, not mixed. She will be interested in you. So you'll think, oh, this baby wants me to carry her. But no, they're interested in the color of your shirt, not you as a person. And you'll carry them, and they will not look at you in the eye. They will go straight to the shirt or the bangle or whatever it is that you're putting on, not to you. So later on, we started now persisting with the doctors that no, there's something wrong with this child. So now the doctors advised us to take the child to, and it's called an ECD, the Early Childhood Development Center. It's one in Kenya. And Gertrude's, Muthaiga. They have an early childhood development center. So basically what happens, you go there, you take your child for total assessment. So they look at the child, and then if there's anything, they'll diagnose the child. If there's nothing, they'll just say, okay, maybe your child is just a late bloomer. We are not able to trace anything. And they will give you a way forward, of course. First of all, before we went to Gertrude's, we were at Kenyatta Doctors Plaza. We looked for a pediatrician, a neurologist, because we felt, okay, autism, neuros, kind of match. So when we took our child there, the pediatrician asked us, what brings you to the clinic? And we're like, okay, our child we feel and we are concerned that she could be a late bloomer, but we just want to check things out so that we are not assuming that they'll talk. Because you see, with relatives, they'll just say, mtoto ataongea, stop disturbing the child. They will talk. People talk at 4, at 5. What do you mean? Yours is only 2 and you're concerned. So they asked a lot of questions. So how was your delivery? Which I was shocked, because I thought, hey, the issue is the child, not me. Yeah. They asked, how was the delivery? How was your pregnancy? What kind of emotions did you go through while you're pregnant? Were you stressed? Did you have any issue during pregnancy? Any tiny issue that needed, the doctor's concern and all that? And now, as they were asking that and I'm answering, is when then they're just writing notes. Of course, they don't tell you anything. And then he was like, okay, I'm not the best doctor for your child. Take them to Muthaiga. And unfortunately now, autism is an issue with development that affects social, how you recognize things, basically how your brain processes things. It's not a disease. Yeah. So there's no emergency around it. It's not like your child has a fever, you'll be rushed into an emergency. So we go to Muthaiga and they tell us, oh, you've come to the ECD, you're karibuni sana, but you have to book. So we go around, I think it was like the month of May. We are booked in for around August. Are you serious? It's not an emergency. It's the only center. What do you expect? Gosh. There are 1,000,001 children waiting for their turn. Yeah. And you pay an arm and a leg. And I'm thinking, for me, I can afford. Or not yet afford, but we had done some research. And because we were given that threshold we waited for around 3 months. And during these 3 months, there's literally nothing they can do. They tell you just take your child home and wait for those 3 months and you'll come. Literally nothing. So here I am, a mother. I'm busy panicking because this doctor does not see the urgency I have. This doctor does not see the need in me, the cry that I'm having towards my daughter. Me, I'm thinking this child is 2 and they're not showing any sign. You need to treat them now so that they start showing signs tomorrow. And they just, si kupuuza, but to me it was like kupuuza because to me it was an emergency. But they're like, but your child is not sick. We have a line. And the next appointment is for 3 months to come. Yeah. There's literally nothing you can do during that time apart from research. And even if you research, what are you researching about? Yeah, exactly, because there's no diagnosis. You don't know. Yeah, and Google can be a shocker. You say my child cannot walk. Oh, it brings a whole list of things why your child cannot walk and you cannot pinpoint, oh, it must be this. So we are patient, we wait. And we were booked in and we went in. So for consultation at that time, I paid, it was 4,500. That's just consultation. the way you just enter and you talk to a doctor and you say, oh, my head, my arm, my eye, my what, and then they're like, okay, let's do this test, this bado jalipia test. That's just consultation. And the consultation is almost like, if you don't know, you will be very shocked, because what they do, they just put the child there to play and observe. Me, I was thinking of, I don't know, press her, pinch her, something, remove her clothes, do something, put thermometers, I don't know. But what they just did is gave her toys and they were observing. And as they were observing, they're asking me questions. How does she play? And I realized when my daughter plays in specific ways, she will take spoons and line them up. She will take bottles and line them up in a straight line, perfectly straight line. She will take items and just line them up, and they have to be items of the same theme. So she will not take a spoon and a bottle top and a bottle. No, if it's spoons, spoons. And a fork will not be there. If it's forks, forks. If it's specific things. If we bought her toys, both dolls and cars, she refused dolls completely. No teddy bears, no dolls. It's only recently that she's been able to accept them slowly. But with the cars, she would only play with the wheels. With bikes, whenever she saw children riding their bikes, she would want the bike, and if you gave her, she would lay the bike down and just spin the wheels, and she will spend hours and hours there, just spinning wheels, and that will fascinate her. You look at her face and you see she's having the time of her life, just spinning and spinning and spinning. And whenever she will spin herself round, she will not get dizzy. She will do it for hours, just spinning. And you're like, okay. When you get a hold of her, she's not dizzy. She's okay. And then she was always on the go. She did not walk. She ran. And she ran tiptoeing. And she will run for on and on. Run to the sitting room, the kitchen, and back. It was like a marathon. Throughout. Until you hold her. And then she will not sit down. A normal child should be able to sit. Even if it's for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Sit. Even if they're just doing nothing, just sit on a chair. My child could never sit on a chair. Until a few months ago is when she could sit. After sessions and sessions of therapy is when she could sit down. So my child will never sit. So even eating was standing. Wow. So those are some of the things that we noted. Like, And when the doctors were asking, okay, so how do you feed her? And we're like, oh, we're still feeding her. She's not able to feed herself because she cannot connect this plate, spoon, and the mouth. But for finger foods, she would eat. But the spoon, not yet. And then when it comes to potty training, which is a huge thing when it comes to autism, she can't feel. So she doesn't know when she's urinating or pooping. She can't feel it. So she doesn't get the urge. She just poops. So even now she's 3 years old and she's still in diapers. You can't do without diapers because she cannot feel. Of course, there are times we let her just be without diapers, but she doesn't have that feeling. And then she's non-verbal. So funny thing is that she speaks, but speaks, I call it intellectually, but she does not communicate, which is funny because if you showed her color, she'll tell you what color that is. She'll say, when she comes into the room, a room like this might be a bit too much for her, but a room like this, she'll be able to identify things. She'll say pink, purple, blue. That's how she talks. So what her brain is doing is just absorbing information. Yeah. That's all her brain does. So we go somewhere, she will identify numbers. She can read. She'll identify numbers. She'll identify letters. She can count 1 up to 10 and backwards. That's how her brain processes things. But she will not communicate. She will not come and say, Mom, I want. Mom, I need. Mom, look. Mom. But she will come and say, oh, tree. Oh, yellow. Oh, red. 1, 2, 3, and if it's not complete, she will complete it. Like if number 1, 2, 3 were written somewhere, she'll say 1, 2, 3 and complete it to 10, even if she's not saying up to 10. She can't do it halfway. It has to end. Yeah. So if she found something, like if she came on this table, she'll arrange. Yeah. She cannot stand messy things. When it came to food, she can only eat dry foods. So nothing wet. No soup. If it's ugali, ugali. Tupambane na ugali kwanza. If it's rice, rice. So even when I put soup, it can't be watery because she will not take it. But through therapy, we've been able to achieve a few milestones, which I'll talk about. So when it came to playing, she will just play on her own. Even if you put her in the middle of 100 children, she will somehow find her own spot. Nothing about children fascinates her. Not unless they're putting on maybe a bright shirt or a top with something she can identify, a letter that she can read and all that. She'll come and not come to the child to, play and all that, but just touch whatever it is and then just move on. Nothing about a child fascinates her. She doesn't play with other children. She just literally isolates herself, not playing alone while with children, but literally you'll see her in a different corner. If children run towards her, she'll go the other direction. And she doesn't talk. Like I mentioned, she's non-verbal. She doesn't talk. She will find other ways of expressing herself. If she wanted something, she will take you to it. If she needed maybe water and you're in the sitting room, she'll drag you to the kitchen and make you, stand where the water is. So it's up to you now to keep guessing. Oh, you want water? You want something? Are you hungry? Things like that. So we've learned to put things at her level so that she's just able to find her way through and be able to, get whatever it is that she needs. Yeah. So at Gertrude's, those are the questions that were being asked. How does she play? How does she relate with you? How does she relate with other relatives? What happened to you while you were giving birth? Because all those things come to play. Though, unfortunately, they cannot pinpoint that, it is because of this reason that your daughter is autistic. Unfortunately, they can't pinpoint that. But because you've brought up all these issues, they will say, okay, these are all possible reasons. That will help them know what kind of therapy to give. That is just more of a direction to them. Because autism also can find itself in your lineage. If someone is autistic, it can find yourself there. But we being Africans, autism is not something that we are used to. So I wouldn't know if anyone in my family is autistic. Now, from my daughter going forward and her generations to come, they will know because we have identified it. But me and my husband can't tell. How are we even supposed to tell? If someone didn't talk until they were 5 years, how does that concern us? Those are not things we go about talking. But grandmothers, maybe they will see something in a child and they'll be able to tell you, okay, I've seen this trait. It's happening. And unfortunately, autism has been labeled. We don't label it autism, we label it witchcraft.
That's what I was about to say.
Yes.
It's probably...
That's witchcraft. Yeah. You did something wrong. Your grandfather and grandmother did something wrong. You as a parent did something wrong. You went to witch doctors. You gave out your child. Name it. Other than looking for maybe something medically. Okay, there's something clearly wrong with this child. What can we do? And what is this? So we didn't know that. And then now the other things that your child goes through. They look at the ear. Because if this child is not talking, could it be they're not hearing? So they look at they check the ears, they check, that will be done through, they do like speech therapy depending on the level your child is in. All that they check. They run, it's a blood count, but it's not this kawaida blood count to check RTSG or red blood cells and white blood cells. They check what other thing could be. I think they check the DNA because the results of that blood comes out like after a week or so. So there are other things they check. Yeah. And you pay. One, like maybe the hearing we paid like 3,500. The blood, you'll pay like 7,000, and in total you spend almost 30,000. That is just diagnosis. Hatujanza matibabu. Hatujanza therapy. So after that is when we were told, okay, so your daughter is autistic. And nobody tells you what autism is. Now you go find out for yourself what is autism. And now you're told, okay, now for us, we were told, okay, your daughter is autistic. So you come this and this date. We're going to give her like it's called like a schedule of therapy, how her therapy should go, like a program. Because autism is a spectrum. That means no two people on the spectrum are the same. What will work for one autistic child may not work for another. So every autistic child has their own plan of therapy or own program. Fortunately and unfortunately for others, it's severe. Because remember, it's a spectrum. That means others are high up on the spectrum, others are low on the spectrum. My daughter is somewhat low on the spectrum because she's not deformed, because autism can also cause deformation. Her muscles are okay. She's non-verbal. She can walk. Some autistic children can't walk. She can talk, though not communicate. Some autistic children don't talk at all, not even read and all that. So her program was put. But the amount of money we were injecting into that program, we're like, no, it's not possible. So we sought for an alternative, which was at least cheaper to maintain and things we could do. So we went to Kenyatta, and that's where now we've been all along, because it was flexible for us in terms of payments. And personally, we just felt, after going there, we just felt like, the way you just feel home? Yeah, we felt home.
And does insurance pay for anything?
No, only if you're a civil servant.
So that's NHF?
Yes.
But normal insurance?
No, I want, no, but maybe they can pay for consultation, because you see, when you go for therapy, you still go and consult. There's that consultation money that you pay. I think that they can pay for. But now for therapy, there are some insurance, I may not know of them, that could pay, but the ones we are in don't pay for that. Yeah. It's out of pocket. And unfortunately, for some autistic children, they are on medication. I bless God because mine is not on medication. Some are on medication. Some see a psychiatrist as well. So again, autism is a whole spectrum. So no two people or no two children on the spectrum are the same, even if they are both autistic. Yeah. With my daughter, autism is a journey. Number one, the autistic child or the autistic person doesn't even understand themselves, because they don't know why they act the way they do. And most of the time, they cannot control it. So it's a journey for both the caregiver and the person who has autism. So you get to learn each other. So I got to learn what, if there are ways you get to learn if your child is a seeker or an avoider. So if you check on how they react whenever they go to places. For example, my daughter can't stay for long in a supermarket or a mall. That is too much information for her. Me and you, when we go to a mall, we know, okay, we are going to a mall, we are going to supermarket X, we'll just get in, buy what we need and get out. Yeah. But for an autistic child, when they get in, they count the number of cars in the parking. When they get in, they see the colors in the parking. Hatujaingia bado kwa mall. When they get into the mall, they can hear someone sipping on something. They can hear a dog bark somewhere. They can hear a cat. They can hear every little sound. They can hear a machine running. They can hear a child screaming. That is too much information for the head to take in for that child. When we go into the supermarket, they're seeing numbers, they're seeing colors, they're seeing letters, they're seeing people walking, the ladies in heels, shoes are tapping down, there's a water leaking somewhere. All that is being processed. So if you stay for that place for too long, there'll be an outburst. So when you walk into a supermarket or a shop and you see a child having a tantrum, please be kind on them, parent. Don't say, huyu amelea mtoto wake vibaya, or this one has, you're raising your child wrongly. You don't know what that caregiver is going through. You don't know what that child is going through. So for my child, whenever I go to the supermarket, you see the way you put the child on a cart. I don't put her where they're supposed to stay. I put her inside the cart. Why? When she's inside there, it somehow blocks everything out. So I put her literally inside the cart, and then I give her something to keep her busy. That way, she doesn't go reading numbers. She doesn't go looking at things. She doesn't go absorbing all that information. That is number one. Number two, I don't take her out often. I take her out maybe once a week, or even in that week, I don't really take her out. And if I take her out, I take her out on days where I know the mall will be a bit quiet. There are not many places. If we entered, for example, till date, she's not been able to enter the church because it's too much. It's loud. She can't take in loud noises, and it's a crowd. She can't take in too many people. It's too much for her. So we don't go to church, and if we do, we go in shifts. Or whenever we go together, maybe because after church we need to go somewhere, my husband gets in the church, I maneuver around with the child. And whenever we go to an empty classroom. She will even lead you to the empty classroom. You don't have to take her. She will lead you to the empty classroom, and she will sit there and be happy. So those are things we had to adjust. We don't go visiting a lot of times, relatives and all that. And if we go, we don't go with her so much. Because sometimes friends and relatives don't understand. They don't know why your child can't sit. They don't know why your child is 3 years and they cannot feed themselves. And they're still in diapers. They don't know why your child doesn't want to be touched. And you're a relative and you're supposed to be carried by everyone around you, And they don't know it's okay for a child, because we assume that children don't know, but they know. They know this is my body and I don't want to be touched. And especially now, the festive season where everyone is gathered around the table, around the homes, it's chaos now for us, because now we can't take her to places because she can't be touched. She can't be... And we just try to give her as much comfort as possible. Because even her, we understand that she's trying to deal with whatever it is she's dealing with. So those are some of the things that we had to adjust. We were told also to adjust her eating. So she doesn't take things with sugar. Why? Because she's constantly hyper. Sugar will make it worse. So if you have a child who is autistic, or someone who is autistic, let them find the best diet for the child. And yes, sometimes it may mean breaking the bank, but whenever you can. It's whenever you can. Yeah. Because again, I remember when I was talking to my occupational therapist about the diet of my child, the therapist was like, we also don't want to starve the child, and also we don't want to have a malnourished child. In the name of no sugars, no gluten-free, no what, yeah. So the thing is, avoid processed food, which is good, because if everyone should avoid processed food. So no crisps, no chips, no anything processed. Try and get things so instead of buying processed juice, make juice at home. A banana, a mango, blend it, give the child. Something of that sort, yeah? Instead of buying, out, cook at home. Because it's easier, it's fresher, it's better. Things like that. So for us, we do gluten-free. But on a few days, she gets to eat chapos, because, that fly is expensive, my goodness. Nani kidogo. And you're like, I have a family to feed, a family of, 7, 8 to feed. Nisangapi gluten-free. With the taxes right now, it is expensive. So whenever we can, we do it. So for me, it's easier. But to a parent or a caregiver who, you're just being thrown into the deep end, take one step at a time. That's all I would say. Take one step at a time. Yeah, and don't be so hard on yourself. With this economy, don't be so hard on yourself. You want a child who is very healthy, as opposed to avoiding things for the sake of autism. Talk to your nutritionist, talk to your doctors. They recommend, and tell them, be open. Tell them, this is what I have, this is what I can afford. What can we do with what I can afford? They'll be able to tell you, okay, because you can afford this and this, why don't you take this? Instead of putting sugar, do dates. Grind your dates, put them in porridge. It works. Yeah. Honey, although there are debates about honey, because I think the way they are processed, again, you might not get the best. But again, talk to your nutritionist. They'll be able to help you get what you need for your child. So for us, we adjusted our diet, finances. So roughly, again, not all children are the same. For my child, it costs us roughly between 30 to 50,000 in a month. Yeah, that is minus school. And here we are using Kenyatta. There are those who prefer using other hospitals that are paying higher. Kenyatta is subsidized, and it's already expensive for us, yet it is subsidized. Because like for us, we go to therapy every day, every single day, and it's a 1 hour therapy session. Okay, ideally it's 45 minutes. The other 15 minutes, it's debrief and all that. So this is what happens when we go for therapy. Of course, we drive there or ride there. You just find your way to your whatever hospital or whatever place that you go for therapy. You pay. So a therapy session may be 1,150 to 3,000, depending on the kind of therapy you're going for. Okay? The list is 1,150, 1,200. That's the list. Per day. Haujaweka fuel, because you'll need to transport yourself there. You haven't put in maybe a light snack. Whether you'll cook it at home or buy it, you will still have to get a snack for that child, because they can't go on an empty stomach, neither can they go on a full stomach. They need just to be satisfied, because a hungry child will not cooperate. They'll throw tantrums all over the place, and a full child will keep vomiting. Yeah, so they need to be just right. And you need to carry something that has sugar. It can be natural sugar, like a fruit, because the activities they do are a bit involving. Again, depending on the kind of therapy you take your child to, because every child has their own program. So we get there. I remember the first time, I cried. We go to the OT place, occupation therapist place. And then, of course, you wait to be called. So when you're doing a 9 to 5, my friend, the stories I hear whenever we go there. So what happens? You go, you pay, you wait for your turn, because they take children in turns. Yeah. So they take between maybe 8 children per session, 8 to 10, depending again with the number of students that are there. Remember, it's a referral hospital, so we are dealing with students. We're not dealing with the specialists are like 2 or 3. The rest are students who are coming in handy to learn, and also coming in handy. So you enter the room, you remove the child's socks, the child's jacket, because the child has to be very flexible and very airy and light to move up and down, to jump and do all that. And then you're told, aya sasa wewe, go sit there. And all you can hear from this room is screams. And they're telling you, you see those cries and screams? Learning is taking place. So don't worry. Analia, yes, but don't worry, learning is taking place. And as a mother, you're just supposed to trust. You don't know what is happening there. You're hearing your child's cry, and all you think is, I want to go and save my child. But you can't. Because you're supposed to trust that the doctors know what they're doing. ideally they know what they're doing, because hata ukiachiwa huyo mtoto, when they let you have that child, you don't know what to do with that child, so you just trust them. That's what happens. So they go in for 45 minutes. There are different activities depending on their sensory or whatever sense they are seeking. So there are those who need to be calmed down. There are those who need to be shown how to concentrate. So there are different activities depending on the child's program. There are activities they do as a group, and the activities they do alone, like just waiting. And ideally, all they do is play. So play is very important to a child, because that's the only way that child can learn. So as a caregiver or as a parent out there, if you have children, don't look at those jumping castles in the malls, those trampolines in the malls, and you're thinking these are just people out to get money. No. Anytime you can pay, go and pay, because that is what I am paying. I'm being forced to pay right now, literally. And it's not because I refused to pay early, but that is what my child needs on a constant basis, every single day. They need to go on a trampoline and jump, because as they jump, things are triggered in their mind. And they can only get that sense whenever they jump. They need to go on a swing, because as they swing, the mind is also being triggered. They need to go on a slide. As they go down the slide, the mind is also being triggered, and all these things trigger different places in the mind. So play is a necessity. It's not luxury. It's a necessity. Every child must play. Take them out to those jumping castles. Whenever you hear you're in an estate, your children are playing together, and you hear one child beating the other, as long as they're safe, allow them to beat each other, allow them to interact. Don't interrupt, because you're not helping that child. That child needs to learn, oh, so I can be hit. Oh, so I can fight for my toy. Oh, so someone can actually borrow my toy and we can share. They need to learn that, because ideally that's how the world is. Me and you right now are sharing a table. You're not on your table there and me on my table there. You can't. We are sharing aeroplanes, we are sharing cars, we are sharing. There is no way you, okay, fine, there are those who drive their own, but at a given point, they have to share things. They will learn from way down. And that is how society is. So allow your children to learn how to solve their own problem without you. Because you right now as a grown-up, your mother doesn't come to interpret whenever your boss is telling you sijui what. They don't come to say, hey, that's my son you're shouting at, that's my daughter you're telling you will deduct from salary. Your mother doesn't come to do that, neither does your father. So you need to allow your child to learn how problem solving skills as early as possible. Ukiona mtoto wako ananyang'anyana kitu, it's okay, let them. They are learning how to take space. They're learning how to become leaders. They're learning how to lead, as long as they're doing it in a safe environment. Again, sasa ukiona mtoto amechukua kisu, mawe, anagonga, you let them know. You allow them to be themselves. You just monitor to make sure that they are in a safe environment. So many people, personally, I could not sustain an 8 to 5 job because of my child. Because which employer, by the way, if there's an employer out there and you can sustain this, please hook me up. Which employer will understand that you have to be in therapy every day and it's not an 8 to 9 thing, because remember, you have to travel. They're fine. You will travel very early, get on point, on time, 8, but you'll have 45 minutes, and then how will this child go back? And unfortunately, this is not something you can delegate. So the people I am with, many at Kenyatta, whenever we sit down, number one, many of the caregivers are mothers. Why? Some of their husbands have left them, because what kind of child are you bringing into their family? So marriages have been broken. Many of them are single parents. Many of them are jobless. They're living in households where, for those who are blessed to have their spouse, it's their spouse working. I couldn't keep a 9 to 5 job. I had to be there throughout the therapist. You'll not let your house manager go for this therapist, because after the 45 minutes, 15 minutes are with you and the doctor telling you how this child is. how this child has behaved during therapy, what you need to change at home, what you need to do. A house help will not help you with that. And even if they can, today you're with that house help, tomorrow they're not there. And then what? You start again introducing another house help? Doesn't make sense. And many, because also some of our house managers are not up to par when it comes to education and all that. So they cannot really understand. Ukiambiwa peleka mtoto swing, atakuja kuambia saa ngapi daktari amesema swing. Whenever they get to the house, they're in work mode. They'll probably forget the important things that they needed to tell you. So we could not delegate that. One of us had to take up and be there throughout. So whenever my husband, I thank God for a supportive spouse. He's always there with me. Sometimes he holds meetings when he's at the hospital, because otherwise, being there with your child is very important. Why? The doctors keep saying you're the best therapist. Yes, you will bring them here, but I'm with them for 45 minutes. Yeah. You're with them a whole entire day, whenever you are not bringing them for therapist, and even when you're at home. And this therapist is not some therapy for an autistic child, is their way of life. There is no day, a day will not come and you tambiwa, now stop. The only thing that can happen is to reduce the number of times they need to go. So for example, you might be taking them every day. They'll reach a specific time, and unfortunately that time cannot be specified. So whenever you have an autistic child, it's a journey. Yeah. It's not something you'll be told, okay, once you are done with your 12 therapy sessions, your child will be good to go to the next level. It's until it happens. It's until it happens. And unfortunately, nobody knows when it happens. We have autistic children who spoke when they're 7-year-old. Others at 30s. They just speak at 30. They've been quiet all their life. They just speak at 30. So it's a whole journey. And you're in that journey a lifetime. Yeah. So it's not something you'll be told, okay, you've done 15 sessions, you're good. Now go to the next level. Yeah, so depending on where you go, what you do, roughly, there are those who spend even up to 100,000, because it depends with your pocket. Really depends with your pocket. Right now, we've taken a break because the money is not moneying. But now we have to do it like at least once a week. Yeah, so that we don't break that connection, that growth. So it reached a point, the doctor recommended that my child needs to go to school. And of course, you go to the kindergartens and all that, because anaanza shule. So remember, my issue is not for my child to learn, because that classroom is also therapy for them. My issue was for her to learn how to socialize, because her major problem is socializing. Yeah. No matter how much you call her, she will not respond to her name. Again, that's another sign that we found out in childhood. You'll call her, she's called Sifa. You'll call her Sifa. And she's just ignoring you. That is what we thought. Mtoto anaignoringi watu, but she's not ignoring you. The mind cannot process that she's being called. She does not know what to do with that information. Yeah. She only knows what to do with the information that her brain will process on its own. This one that is being triggered by something else, it's just not being processed. So no matter how many times you call her, she will not respond to her name. She will not even look at you. It's like you're talking to yourself, so to speak. Yeah. So they told us she needs to go to school. So well, in my head, I'm like, shule tu. So I just choose the one I want. Yeah. Which one? Picky, ponky. This one will come to you. And then we go. So we do that. The first school. Yeah, we are here. We're bringing our child. What? School fees ningapi? And they're like, even before that school fees, bring that child first. Let's have a look. And they look at the child and they're like, no, we're not taking her. And you go to the next school. She's what? Autistic. Okay, how old? She's yet to turn 3. Oh, so like 2.5. Mlete. And we take the child. They observe the child and we're like, no, we're not taking her. I have never felt rejected in my life. Let me tell you, I mourned a child who was alive. like literally mourning a child who was alive. I felt a deep sorrow. I felt like, now, even if the simplest of institutions cannot accept you, then what exactly am I doing with you? It was so tough. Those were the toughest times. Just being rejected, rejection after rejection after rejection. And I was like, now me, I'm feeling like this. What about the day she will understand who she is? Because society will teach her who she is. She cannot run away from that. Society will show her, oh, you're different. That's not how we do things here. That's not how people do things, let alone here. That's not how people do things. How will she take rejection? And one day we found a lady. We live in Rongai. So one day we found a lady who has a school by the name Toto's Ark. We were going for Bible study. We hadn't met before. And I was just telling guys about my journey with my autistic child. And, they were encouraging me. And she was like, by the way, I run a school and I can accept your child. Let me tell you the relief. Have you ever carried mzigo and then you get home and put it down? That relief that you feel, that's what I felt. Like something was just taken off my shoulder. And she took this child, and the goodness with her is that though she's running a normal school, now unfortunately for most autistic children, they don't fit in a special school. Neither do they fit in a normal school. They are in between. Because you see, this is something with the brain.
Yeah.
This is not something physical. You're not blind, you're not deaf, you're not on a wheelchair. It's your brain that has the issue. So you don't fit in a special school, because others actually have gone to a special school and they become worse. And others have gone to a normal school and they become worse. So you need a school that can accept this child, not a school fit for them. It's basically a school that can just accept this child the way she is. So we found one, and fortunately for her, so if you're somewhere in Rongai, just look for Toto's Ark. And you have an autistic child, look for Toto's Ark. They will accept. And the good thing with that is that she brings in an occupational therapist once a week to look at those children, because her school does both. So we get a relief, the child starts going to school. Now, unfortunately for autistic children, they thrive in schedules.
Yeah.
So every day we wake up, we do a morning routine of, taking food, dressing up, putting the bag on our back, and heading to school. And then school closes. And now the child doesn't know what to do with with themselves.
Yeah.
And now it is chaos in the house. Because she wakes up. Now you're breaking this cycle. So she's used to waking up, dressing, eating, taking her bag. So in the morning she wakes up, her alarm clock is in her mind. She just wakes up and she's literally on time. She puts her bag and we're like, Mama, no, today we are not going. And it's a meltdown in the house, because why aren't we going? That is not what we do. Because autistic children thrive in schedules. And whenever you break that, they fight it. So now we are really trying, at least there are days we still put on our bags and we go, and we have to go. So we just take her out for a walk, take her out for a ride in the car or something. Then we come back in. Some days are better than others. So again, next year, going back to that, it's hell on earth. But now what do? We just have to ride on it and, move with it.
Wow.
So that's how it is. Yeah. So the kind of support we get is getting a relative who understands us, who can stay with this child even if it's for 1 or 2 hours for us just to take a break. The kind of support we get, we are in a group that have autistic caregivers. So whenever they have webinars, whenever they have anything the government is talking about disabled children and our children can benefit from, we are there. They give us information, because let me tell you, when you have an autistic child, you become a researcher. I thought I was a researcher, but now I became a researcher on a whole new level, because you need to research, read, because let me tell you, children with autism, even them, they're discovering things. Today you wake up doing this, tomorrow you wake up doing something else, and you're just back online. What does it mean for an autistic child to do 1, 2, 3, 4? There are some behaviors that my child used to have, and it's only through research that I knew, she's stimming, what you call stimming. So stimming is basically whenever an autistic person is in an environment where it's too much for them, they do something. It could be flapping, clapping of hands, shaking head, rocking, jumping up and down to soothe themselves or to calm themselves. And stimming has its own benefits and advantages and disadvantages, because some stimming methods are self-harming. Like hitting themselves. So them, they find soothe in that, because now they don't know what to do with all these emotions that are coming up in their brain. All they can do is soothe themselves. So now for my daughter jumps. So you'll think she's excited. She's not excited. She's trying to calm herself down. So you'll just see her jumping everywhere. Or she runs. Like in this room, she'll be running from one wall to another and back repeatedly until she's calm. So I would wonder, why does this child do this? Or she'll lay on the bed and then starts lifting her feet up and hitting them. And she'll do that even a whole hour until she calms herself down. And stimming is good because it teaches the child, you see, you'll forever not be with them. In an environment where they're getting too much information, they need to learn how to calm themselves so that they're able to talk, so that they're able to communicate, so that they're able to do their daily routines and all that. And stimming helps. So whenever you see a child having a repetitive behavior, try find out when do they have that behavior, why, and by that time what is happening around them, so that you're able to help them, and so that you check that their stimming behaviors are not self-destructive. Some bite, some chew on things. It's soothing for them. And you'll wonder, huyu mtoto anapenda kuuma. No. They're trying to find ways of calming themselves down. Even other normal children find ways of calming themselves down. It's just that for other normal children, it's slightly easier for them. But for autistic children, because of all this information they're getting, it might be a bit of a challenge, and that's why they need help. They need therapy. So it's a journey, and autism is a lifetime. So get groups. Groups help a lot because you're able to ask a question. Hey, today it's a rough day. My child is doing 1, 2, 3. How can I help? And because maybe a parent has gone through the same, they can give you a referral. They can tell you what to do so that to help your child in that given time. And the good thing is that the group have experts. So if your child needs hydrotherapy, we have experts in the group. If your child needs whatever they need, we have experts. They can point you at the right direction. And my relatives, like my mother-in-law, has been so helpful. She has paid for some sessions. So she's like, mnenanga nini here. I've paid for 2-3 sessions. So those are the kind of help that we've been receiving, my husband and I.
And how is your older daughter dealing with this?
Yeah. Now, with other children, for us, we walk the journey with her. We do not isolate our elder daughter when in regards to taking care of this younger child. And then we treat them equally. So not because this one is autistic, we'll give them special treatment, no. However, there are those things that, of course, we will need to be like, concentrating on them, all that. Because remember, we carry therapy back home. The doctors will tell us, can you find activities where she can concentrate? And unfortunately for me, that activity has been drawing on the wall. So if you come to my house, it's painted with all sorts of crayons and colors on the wall. Because that's the only activity she will literally hold a pencil to draw. Because she needed to concentrate. She needed to put her mind towards an activity. And we tried building blocks. It wasn't working because of the colors. Again, colors trigger her. We tried making her sit down. She could not. So one day, as she was coloring, we were trying to make her sit down. I just saw her take a crayon and went on the wall and started drawing. And she stayed there for a whole hour. And we're like, Si ungesema.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had these walls for when? Since you were born. You should have said you wanted to paint the walls.
Yeah, have you know,
Yeah, you should have said something.
Yeah.
And that was it for us.
Yeah.
And it also meant another activity that really calms her down is what is it called? Engines. So whenever the father goes to one day the father just went with her to the garage. She was so fascinated, she didn't want to leave. So she would get under the car like the guys and spanners, and she would concentrate on that for a whole 2 hours, and she's fine. And we're like, boom, that's where we'll be going, the garage.
Family fun day.
Yes. Go to the garage, get all dirty, get all greasy. But for us, it's a learning process.
Yeah.
We are learning. So you'll need to find that. And now you see, for that, we allow the other child to come along. So even when we took our child first to be checked, we told her, we feel like Sifa is not so well. She may have autism, but we're going to find out. Like, we break it down. And even when the doctors are checking her, we tell her, this is what the doctors have said. This is what we mean. It means we allow her to ask questions. And she asks, so what does it mean for this? What does it mean when she's doing this? We explain. So we do not neglect her. She takes care of her child, of her sister, just like any other sister takes care of their siblings. So we allow her. We literally allow her to be in her sister's life. Of course, it has changed her dynamics, like playing. I realize she doesn't play a lot because I think maybe kids make fun of her. This is the sister with the widow. Children out there don't understand. But now we tell her, now you'll be your sister's ambassador. Tell children that your sister is autistic and tell them what autism means and show them how it means and show them that they can play with her just in a different way, not in a normal way. And walking that journey with her, showing her clips of people with autism who have made it, so that she does not also carry the burden of, oh yeah, my sister.